Hello, and thank you for tuning into this webcast. I'm George Tilson, and it's truly my pleasure and honor to talk about this important topic. How to present yourself to employers as a strong applicant and a very viable candidate. The kind of candidate that an organization or company says, wow, are we lucky we found this employee? And if you're an entrepreneur and you want your customers to be equally thrilled with you, and with the products and service you offer them, right? The old adage says, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. In full disclosure, I'm not a person who has a physical disability, but for the past 40 years of my career, I've gotten to know and learn from many folks who were either born with or acquired a physical disability. Some I've met as a teacher, career counselor, employment specialist, and others have become friends of mine. So for this particular webcast, I thought you'd enjoy hearing from 4 of them. I want you to hear key points that they share about seeking and building a career. They'll share some of the lessons they've learned from their own experiences. Let me introduce them first, and then we'll hear their thoughts as we move through this discussion. I won't tell you their ages, but I will tell you that one person is at the beginning years of her career, 2 are mid-career folks, and 1 has had an illustrious career and is looking forward to a well-deserved retirement. 3 were born with a disability, and 1 acquired a disability at a young age. All of them have gone on to college and received their degrees in a variety of fields. Alexandra Dixon is a certified navigator for the Affordable Care Act. She's also an activist for human rights. Dr. Michael Ward is a professor at the George Washington University in the Graduate School of Education and Human Development. Mike is considered one of the national pioneers in the area of self-determination. Chaz Kellum works for a professional baseball team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he serves as manager of diversity initiatives. And Chris Milo is a documentary filmmaker and videographer who owns his own production company. By the way, he and Chaz also team up as motivational speakers. What I find fascinating is that these folks have many common perspectives on life, careers, and issues pertaining to disability, but they also have strong views that differ on particular topics, which makes sense because when we talk about any disability, of course, we're really talking about individuals and how their disability affects them personally. If you've taken the time to click into this webcast, you may be someone whose physical challenges vary significantly from another listener's. Your life circumstances and stories will be uniquely your own. Perhaps you're just in the early stages of your career path, or you might be someone who was already in a well-established career that was suddenly interrupted by the onset of a physical disability. You may be someone who's trying to figure out how to re-enter the workforce. The challenge for me in facilitating this webcast session was to gear our discussion towards those key tips and pointers that would be useful to everyone, regardless of their individual circumstances. I'll leave it up to you to decide where you would want to modify certain ideas and strategies in order for them to be most use to you. Since we'll be covering a lot of ground in a short period, I've framed our discussion in several ways. First, let's review what we mean when we say career development. Well, here's one way to look at it. First thing is to know yourself very well. What skills and knowledge do you have? And what abilities can you offer out there in the world? Abilities can be demonstrated and revealed in a lot of different ways. Maybe you're a person who has strong academic abilities. You're what they call book smart. Like the 4 friends I introduced you to, you may have earned several college degrees. Or are you someone who has a natural inclination towards the arts, or technology, or mechanics? It could be you've earned a credential or license in one of the many professional trade areas. And don't forget, if you use any assistive technology in your daily life, this also demonstrates a skill area. In fact, the ways in which you manage your everyday life illustrates certain skills. And always keep in mind, skills you have in one area or setting can often be applied in new ways and in new environments. We call these transferable skills. It could be you're someone who is wondering, well, how can I take a skill I had at one time in my life and use it in a completely different way? Or how can I learn a completely new set of skills? Along with knowledge of what you can and want to do, you have to know what your unique challenges are and what supports you'll not only need, but what supports are effective for you. What strategies and accommodations will help you achieve your goals. Alexandra Dixon put it this way when I spoke with her. Play to your strengths, but know your limitations. All of this falls under the category awareness of self. This is also a critical part of what we call self-determination. By the way, for a great VCU webcast on this topic, listen to the one presented by Mike Ward and Michael Waymeyer. Awareness of opportunities. In a nutshell, you can have all the skills and aspirations in the world, but if you don't know where to apply them, you're going to be stuck. Knowing where the opportunities are and how to tap into them, or even create new ones for yourself, will determine your career possibilities. Building your career demands a good measure of creativity. Here's Chaz.
So I'm going to give you 5 quick pieces of advice if I could. The first one is, it's a full-time job to find a job. So you've got to put in the time. The time has to be put in order for you to find a job. The second one is, be creative and think outside the box. So ask your close network of friends and family around you for advice, suggestions. There's still a newspaper. Pick up the newspaper and look in the newspaper. Be creative in your approach and how you approach the job market. And think outside the box when it comes to the job. You don't have to do what you want to do forever right now. So start from the bottom and be willing to work your way up. Be patient. I mentioned that earlier, but be patient. The right job will find you. If you do the small things right, the big things will take care of themselves. So I would say to be patient. Think about the things you've done in the past and the talents that you have. Try to find a job that matches the talents or the things that we're good at. I know what I'm good at. I know what I bring to the Pittsburgh Pirates as an organization. I know what they need me to do. And I stick within my talents. And the 5th piece is to have fun in the adventure. So don't think about the process as much as being work. Think about it as being an adventure and grow from each conversation, each interview, each volunteering opportunity. Grow from them personally and professionally. And again, I think the job will take care of itself.
There's no getting around it. Exploration and preparation are required if you want to find the right job in the right career field. Exploration, including lots of observation, is an important part of not only identifying your career focus, but for solving everyday life challenges too. Mike Ward told me a great story about growing up watching his dad, who was a machinist, as he was working on cars. Years later, Mike was at an outside event when his motorized chair stopped working, and everyone was scrambling to help him figure out what to do, and Mike kept trying to tell them, but they didn't understand what he was saying. They were too focused on finding a way to tow it off to the shop. And just before the chair got hauled away, Mike got them to check the battery cables. Sure enough, one had come loose. This is an excellent illustration of the value of observing others in action, taking in as much information as you can, all the time. I asked Chris about how he had explored his career interests.
Okay. How did I come to this interest? That's a good question. So when I was really young, I loved movies, all kinds of movies. My family, I would quote movies all the time. And specifically, I love Disney movies. And so I had an interest in drawing and doing all kinds of art stuff. And so I wanted to be an animator. Fast forward a little bit through high school into Edinburgh University, my first college, they actually had an animation program that I went through. I got about halfway through, maybe more than halfway through the program, and realized that animation wasn't for me, and I just didn't enjoy it. Compound that with a couple medical issues, and I ended up dropping out of school and working retail for a long time, and realized that I don't like retail either. Just not for me. So I took it upon myself to go back to school. There's a local university here called Robert Morris University. They offer TV video production. And so I went back to school as a non-traditional student for my TV video production degree, graduated, and here we are trying to make connections and doing a whole bunch of video work. So, yeah.
Mike puts it this way: get as much experience, education, and training as you can. This is probably as good a time as any to emphasize what most of us know. The more education and training you can get, whether it's through on-the-job training or college or trade school, the more options you'll have. You'll be more, maybe you've heard this before, marketable out in the working world. This, of course, applies to everyone, whether you have a disability or not. Did you know that among people with physical disabilities who have successfully found employment with the help of their vocational rehabilitation office, only about half take advantage of educational benefits provided through VR? Each state's VR system varies in the services offered, so be sure you find out what may be available for you. And be sure to look into all of the other resources for which you may be eligible in order to support your further education and training. And don't forget that learning occurs informally too. Mike tells career seekers, any experience is a good experience. Learn from it. Someone else I know used to say, try it, you might hate it. Here's my mantra: exposure precedes interest, which means if you haven't observed something or heard about it, you may be missing the very thing that could become your life's passion. Self-awareness, knowing where the opportunities are, and exploration and preparation are only as useful as the end result. Did you land that job opportunity in your targeted occupational field? Something to keep in mind: all of our life experiences are important, whether these are good or even not so good experiences, because they provide lessons that add to our knowledge of who we are. They guide us towards adjusting our aspirations and our expectations. They give us clues as to where we may need to acquire new skills or adapt the ones we have. Hopefully, every day we are finding out more about who we are. What are we made of anyway? What do we want out of life? This is why my friends and I believe it's critical to set high expectations for yourself and to be willing to take those risks. Because let's face it, without taking reasonable risks in life, we may fall short of our true potential. Keep in mind, this basic model of career development applies to any career, occupational field, or job. It also applies to all educational levels. Again, notice the arrows pointing back to awareness of self, a reminder to maintain a lifelong learning philosophy. Here's another way I like to frame the topic. What does it take to be successful in a career? In life, actually? Maybe you've heard the commercial that says, "Be your own CLO, Chief Life Officer." Put another way, how can you be TOPS in your life? TOPS stands for talent, opportunity, planning, and supports. Let's take a closer look. You'll notice how this dovetails nicely with the phases of career development I just shared with you. When we hear the word talent, we often think of the American Idol kind of talent, or those displayed by Olympic athletes. But talent is far more than that. It encompasses all of our attributes, the things we can do, our preferences, and our life goals. It includes our skills and knowledge, our values and our passions. Have you taken the time to really acknowledge all of your talents? Do an inventory. Get others who know you well to contribute to that inventory. Chances are others who care about you and have high regard for you are going to identify positive attributes you may have overlooked. Chris Coleman, who wrote the book An Unconfined Life, describes this as the value of being valued. If you haven't seen it, check out the webcast Chris did with Nancy Brooks Lane. In taking stock of yourself, ask these important questions. What are my defining traits? What risks am I willing to take? What am I really passionate about? For Alexandra Dixon, social services and advocating for human rights has always been a passion. And that's what led her to work for women's health issues, improved education, and access to health care. Alexandra truly exhibits self-determination in action. She told me about some of her friends in high school who also had physical disabilities. She said, they weren't nearly as independent as I was. They couldn't get around on their own. They were totally dependent on their families. My mother expected me to figure out public transportation. So eventually I decided that I needed to learn how to drive. One of Alexandra's missions is to help nervous parents understand how important it is to let their kids try things. Try things in order to develop self-reliance and autonomy. Her personal philosophy: life's too short to do something you don't like. And another great quote, I believe in being the authentic me. You have to claim your identity. Mike Ward supports that idea. He says, open your eyes, make the most of what you have, and play up your successes. In this case, bragging about yourself is a good thing. It's also important to be thinking of the realities of your needs for support in order to reach your goals and aspirations. We'll talk more about this in a bit. Opportunity. How well do you know your local business community? The companies and organizations that exist in your area or region. What types of jobs are performed for these organizations? Have you gone online to learn more about these employers? This is the research part of job seeking, and it's frankly the part that I would say many career seekers overlook, or they invest very little time in doing. A friend of mine is an employment specialist, and she tells her job seekers, getting a job is a job, and finding work is work. Her advice: if you're looking for a full-time position and you're not currently employed, you should be spending 40 hours a week doing your research and submitting applications. If you want a 20-hour-a-week job, then you need to devote 20 hours to do this. Food for thought, right?
It's a great question. My career path was a unique one. I went to college, a small school here in Pennsylvania called Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania. I got my degree, undergraduate degree in sports administration from there. And to be honest with you, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I've always had a passion for sports, but I was really unclear about my overall direction. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do ultimately. And graduated from Edinburgh in 2005, and I actually attended a sports conference hosted by a local university because I've always valued the importance of networking, and I went to this conference and networked and shook some hands and met some people, and was very uncomfortable at that conference, to be honest, but I stuck with my gut and what I knew what was right and did it. And met a guy that worked at the Pirates. At the time, he was director of ticket sales. I went up to him after his session and introduced myself, and I had a package for him of a resume and some works that I had done or worked on in the past, and he gave me a shot. You know, sometimes all we need is that one person to give us an opportunity, and he gave me an opportunity. I started out in the ticket sales department, in an inside sales area, making phone calls. Transitioned from that to another sales position, and then transitioned from that into my current community role. So the hardest part of many businesses, but especially the sports and entertainment business, is getting your foot in the door. And once you get your foot in the door, the rest of the opportunities are endless.
If you have that entrepreneurial spirit and drive, do you know what the market is for the products or services you wish to provide? Have you aligned yourself with the partners and allies, financial advisors, and business tools you'll need if you want to create and implement a business plan? Have you secured the initial funding to capitalize your enterprise? Who's going to support the business management side of your business while you focus on delivering the goods to your customers? Again, this takes a lot of research and strategic planning. And whether you're aiming to work for a company or to be the boss of your own company, you're going to need to make lots of connections, otherwise known as networking. If you're a natural at networking and you have a lot of good contacts, we often say that you have a lot of social capital. But if you're not comfortable with networking and you don't have much in the way of social capital, don't worry, because there are plenty of tricks of the trade you can use and people who would be willing to help you with this. And think about this. If you know 10 people and they know 10 people who also know 10 people, well, you get the idea. That's 1,000 potential contacts. This calls for persistence and a good dose of patience. In fact, these were themes that ran through all 4 conversations I had. Persistence and patience.
You know, that's a great question. What have I learned if I could go back in time? To be honest with you, the first thing is and I'm still learning this, is to be patient. I think patience has been something I'm continuously learning, to be patient with my career, to be patient with myself, and to truly understand myself. Networking is critical, and I'm working on that, trying to be the best networker and present myself the best way possible. To never give up or give in to the expectations or the stereotypes that surround me. I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in what people think of you. I love now being the underdog. You know, when people don't think I can, I love proving them wrong. To me, that's more fun and an adventure. And the final piece is to have as much fun along the journey as possible. You know, hard time doesn't discriminate, and they don't discriminate, and bad moments will pass. And through 43 broken bones, it took me a while to learn that bones will heal and the hard times they'll surpass. And so there's a good day and a good moment coming right after the next one.
Alexandra networks through the many organizations she volunteers with, including the Advisory Council for Students with Disabilities in a local school district, a program for homeless people, an LGBT advocacy group, among others. And although she's a staunch supporter of disability rights, she says, hey, just because I happen to have a disability doesn't mean there aren't other groups who can use my support. Crowdsourcing is a big topic these days, generating interest and making contacts for a specific purpose. Well, what could be a better purpose than to get the word out to as many people as possible that you're looking for particular opportunities? You're probably already using any number of social networking sites such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and who knows what's next. Well, these can be valuable career tools at your disposal. Once you are clear about what you want to do and you have a good plan of action, tell every person you encounter, in person or online, I'm looking for a position in the area of XYZ. Do you have any ideas, contacts, or leads for me? Recently, I was presenting to a room full of parents of people with disabilities on the topic of how to help your son or daughter with the job search. And at the end of the session, a woman took the microphone and told the audience, my son has a PhD in electrical engineering. He graduated 10 years ago. He has cerebral palsy and uses an augmentative device to communicate, but he's sitting at home. He's unemployed. He's very depressed. Then, following my suggested strategy, she added, does anyone have a contact, idea, or lead for my son? And do you know that 3 people immediately raised their hands? One person's husband worked for NASA. Another person said he owned his own engineering firm, and the third person said her grandson taught electrical engineering at a local college. And they all gave their contact information to this mom. The moral of this story is, tell everyone you meet you're seeking a particular type of opportunity. Does it guarantee you a job? No, but one contact leads to another, and so forth. And as my dad used to say, son, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. He also said, no one ever died from hearing no. I'm not sure if that's always true, but it's something that's really stuck with me. All of this makes me think about how marketing principles apply perfectly to this topic. Consider that at its most basic level, marketing has 2 components. 1, do people know you exist? So, for potential employers, how will they know who you are and that you're seeking an opportunity? How will you, what I call, I'll say, package and pitch yourself to an employer? And 2, if they know you exist, is it worthwhile knowing you, hiring you, bringing you in as a member of their team? Mike Ward has a great way of putting it. You gotta have a hook. Do something that will make you stand out from the crowd. Marketing principles also apply to your research of target employers. Think about it. The purpose of your research is to find out, 1, what companies are out there? And 2, is this a company I'd even want to work for? When you go in for an interview, for example, always remember that you are interviewing the contact person about the company as much as they're interviewing you for the job. Chris Milo talks about how adversity taught him that he's a great problem solver, and employers and customers find that a valuable asset.
Some of the things I've discovered about myself over the years. I've learned to embrace every bit of myself, honestly. I'm not going to shy away and say that I haven't had dark thoughts or sad thoughts or depressing thoughts. I won't say that it's been an easy journey, but it's been a journey that I've gone through. It's gotten me to where I am. I've learned that I love hearing people's stories. I've got my own story, but what I love is hearing other people's stories. And I think it's helped me in multiple ways, not only with video production, but having a disability in general makes you a problem solver. And so when it comes to doing video production, for me, there's a lot of times that I have to think on my feet, no pun intended, but I've got to think on my feet and try and problem solve. And I have a whole lifetime now of learning to problem solve. How am I going to get, to a restaurant that might be up steps? How am I going to, get something off the top shelf? Any number of things. I have to look at things from a different perspective, and I think that helps when it comes to video production.
While emphasizing their personal beliefs and the need to stay positive, both Chris and Alexandra also make great points about the value of doing volunteer work or projects to showcase and demonstrate to potential employers what you can do. Here's Chris.
So some advice I would give to somebody looking for work: don't get discouraged. Every job that I've had prior to video production, actually including video production, has been through knowing somebody. So networking is incredibly important. But I've also applied, especially after graduating with video production, I've applied to over 50 jobs, maybe heard from 2 or 3 for an interview, and gotten turned down from each one. I think that you can't get discouraged, and you have to believe in yourself and what you're doing, and have to keep plugging away. For myself, with video production, I had to do work for free. I had to showcase my work for free. So I had to take job opportunities or volunteer opportunities that would allow me to do video production in one form or another, to not only build my skills, but also to network. And I think, while I'm speaking strictly from video production, I think that can translate wherever. If you are trying to find a job in a particular field and you're having a hard time, you need to be willing to believe in yourself and go out and practice these job skills, volunteer at different places, or do what you need to do, because it not only gives you the job experience that you need, but it also gives you the networking connections that you need.
Planning. Once you've identified what you want to do, and you've found some organizations and companies that have potential opportunities, it's time to package, prepare, and pitch. What do I mean by that? Well, how will you package yourself in a way that grabs the attention of a prospective employer? Make sure your resume and cover letter reflect what you'll bring to that employer's table. Are they customized to the target company? Most employers these days use an electronic screening process, so do your resume and cover letter include key words that will be highlighted during the screening? There are many resources out there on how to prepare outstanding resumes and cover letters. Get a trusted friend who has good proofreading skills to give your materials a thorough critique, or better yet, someone who works in your field of interest. These days, there are a lot of opinions about if and when a person should disclose they have a disability. All 4 of the friends I interviewed for this webcast emphasized that it is certainly up to each individual to decide what's right for you. For Alexandra and Mike, the time to disclose is usually when you've been invited to come in for the interview. Chaz and Chris suggest for some folks it may be advantageous to disclose at the time they apply for the job.
I think you have to be as honest as possible, as often as possible. I think the more information that you can disclose, the better. I think it's up to you and your level of comfort when is how and to when that happens. I took the approach of being honest with my organization about my disability early on in the process. I made them aware of my limitations. But I kind of, in the questions that are posed, I always tackle a quote-unquote negative with a positive. So I'm not going to be able to lift that heavy box due to the limitations of my strength and my stature. However, I will assist thoroughly in getting the box to the office, help pack the box, and when I get to the new location, unload whatever's in that box. So attacking the quote-unquote limitations or negative items with several positives. So I may need a modified workstation. However, that modified workstation is an example that the elderly or their senior population could also use to, if they have back challenges or if they're having shoulder or wrist challenges with working in an office setting. So really showcasing that inclusive approach to my limitations or disability challenges to improve the overall organization.
With today's increasing push by employers to promote diversity in recruitment and hiring, it may well be that disclosure, as a qualified applicant with a disability, could play to your advantage.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, disclosing can be very beneficial, especially if you know that they're hiring for disabilities or for diversity with disabilities. I've found, and I don't know specifics outside of the video production field, but I believe that a lot of places do like a separate kind of hub or something, like they get their job connections through somewhere else. So going through their regular HR might not be the best way if you're looking to get in through diversity. But I can also say that doing video production, that I've been hired specifically because I'm the only filmmaker, video production person in and around Pittsburgh and probably much further than that, that has a disability. And so when it comes to projects that deal with disability, I'm the go-to guy. And so there is a strength in embracing your disability and your diversity.
For any job seeker with a disability, disclosure is often a trial and error process. I suggest you may want to experiment with different strategies. If you're interested in a career field that involves products, be sure you have a portfolio of such things as writing samples, artwork, photos of your projects, awards, letters of recommendation, and so forth. Some job seekers have even prepared short video clips that highlight their unique talents and abilities. All of this is what I mean by packaging yourself. Prepare. It's a common sense thing, but it pays to locate the place where you'll be interviewing and be sure you can get there. And if you opt not to disclose any need for certain accessibility, it's up to you to find out whether you'll be able to get into the building and the room where the interview will be held. In this day and age of the ADA and architectural standards for accessibility, there are still times when a place deemed accessible is not. Do some practice interviewing with folks. Learn great responses to the standard interview questions, but particularly the classic, "Tell us about yourself." What will you say to make you stand out from the competition? If you've done your homework on the target job and the company, and you know who you are and what you're passionate about, this should actually be a fun question to answer. Again, there are a ton of resources out there on good interviewing skills, so I'm not going to cover them here. My friend Denise Bissonnette, employment consultant extraordinaire, believes an interview is really a time for a company to see if you would fit in as a member of their team. If your speech happens to be difficult to understand for people who don't know you, and you don't use an augmentative communication device, then you're probably already accustomed to figuring out strategies that work for you when you're out in public and want to strike up a conversation with a stranger or need to convey information or ask for something. And even if you don't have challenges with people understanding your speech, it may be that some interviewers will still be nervous about how to act around someone with an apparent physical disability. Some of you may use a service animal or have a personal care attendant or an employment specialist who's supporting you. And if that's the case, be sure no one is taken by surprise. Let the interviewers know that you'll be coming into the interview with these supports. And if you use any equipment or medical devices that are noticeable, decide beforehand how you're going to explain these to the interviewers. Chaz and Chris suggest it's up to you to be proactive so prospective employers will be as comfortable as possible. Pitch and promote yourself. Your basic goal in an interview is to convey these key points. I like this company and job. I'm excited about the possibility of working for a company like this. And I will bring the right talent for this job. And if you hire me, I'll be a great asset to the team. I asked Chaz and Chris how they pitch and promote their motivational speaking gigs and found out they don't. Their business comes strictly from people talking them up, what we call word of mouth advertising. So I put them on the spot and gave them a chance to promote themselves.
Okay. This is so outside of our realm. We don't do commercials. We don't self-promote.
We don't.
I would say that if you're looking for some engaging presenters to really talk to the power of self-determination, the power in believing yourself and working hard, and maybe with the caveat of having a disability involved, because that's really what we identify as hard workers, and then with a disability as a small part. We would be honored to help spread the message to your organization.
It's great. I love it. I love it. I mean, you said it perfectly. It's fun. It's interactive. It's engaging. It's upbeat. It's energetic. We're not the after-school special. We don't want anybody feeling sorry for us. We don't know everything about disability. We can't answer all disability questions. We're not speaking for every person that has a physical disability. We're just preaching and practicing what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Nice.
You're ridiculous.
Whoop, whoop. I'm the better dancer.
What is that dance move? You're a better dancer with that?
You can't feel it? Don't you feel it?
No. Oh God. I'm aching right now.
Good. After every interview, you know the drill. Send a thank you note right away. These days, it's perfectly acceptable to send an email note of thanks, but consider how nice it is for people to receive that rare note through snail mail. It stands out. Get a box of professional-looking thank you note cards and handwrite your thanks. If your handwriting is terrible like mine, then type a note and slip a copy into the card. In all cases, tell the prospective employer you look forward to hearing from them and that you will follow up within the next week. As an aside, if you're applying for a job in an artistic field, you may want to design your own card that's a further reflection of your talents. Just be sure it's appropriate to the culture of that company. Supports. It bears continued emphasis we all need a strong support system and champions or allies. This is especially true when we're in the job search mode. This can be an exciting time, but it can also be one of the most stressful. So call on your circle of friends, your admirers, your allies and mentors, and be specific about what they can do to help you. At every stage of your job search, all the way through to the job offer and beyond. Mike describes this as finding pivotal people. And if you don't happen to get a job offer this time, call on your personal network to help you figure out what you might do differently next time and to challenge you to get back out there. I asked Chaz and Chris to comment on this.
Good question.
Good question.
Great question. We actually have been blessed to have a great circle of supporters, of friends, of advocates that have just been lucky enough to look out for us and have continued to recommend us, have continued to support us, and have kept their ears open. All of our business has been by word of mouth. We've done no advertising, no commercials, we've not reached out to anyone. It's all been about word of mouth, and it's all been making sure our friends and family and our supporters know what we do. We showcase our skill sets to them. We perfect our skill set and our knowledge, and we practice it as much and as often as possible.
Here's a final point I'd like to make. I call it the importance of having Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. The more options you can envision for yourself ahead of time, the more open you'll be to the possibilities. And the more open to the possibilities, the more discoveries you'll make and people you'll meet. As Alexandra said to me, remember, if Plan A doesn't work out, there are 25 other letters. Keep at it. This is exactly what Chris encountered on his own career journey. To me, the most important message I've gotten from Alexandra, Mike, Chaz, and Chris, and many others is this. You have to have patience, resilience, tenacity, and grit in order to get what you want. As Mike says, people with disabilities are natural problem solvers. We have to figure things out every single day, every moment of the day. And I say, smart employers want problem solvers. So show them how smart they would be to hire you. Let's wrap up with a summary of the key points from this session. Do an honest inventory of what you have to offer employers or customers. What are your areas of real interest and expertise? Be honest about the assistance you might need and make sure you get those supports and accommodations. If your dream job requires it, get whatever education and training you need. And if you don't want to go back to school, figure out how to modify your career goals so you can still work in your field of interest. But if you find you have to switch your career area entirely, that's where plans B through Z come into play. Find ways to really showcase your talents. Don't just sit around and expect opportunities to fall out of the sky. Seek them out. Ask everyone you meet if they have any ideas, contacts, or leads for you. You're the one who gets to decide if, when, and how you'll disclose your disability to a prospective employer. Figure out your strategy ahead of time. Identify your long-term goals, break them into manageable steps, and then take action. Surround yourself with champions and allies, pivotal people who believe in you, encourage you, and give you ideas, contacts, and leads. And most importantly, people who will challenge you to keep going. And this last one bears particular emphasis. Celebrate your victory, every victory, no matter how large or small it might be, and reward yourself when you accomplish a step in your personal action plan. If you can master these critical steps, you'll be following your career aspirations, presenting yourself to employers as a viable candidate. You'll be